The sound that split my life in two wasn't my boy's scream. It was some kid across the staff lot yelling "stop" while a baton came down against the sun, and before anyone figured out what was happening, you could see Jalen with his headphones around his neck, hands half up quiet as a library, then a knee in his back and his face hitting pavement so hard the sky shook. I didn't see it live. I got the call. Unknown number, a nurse trying to make her voice sound like a hallway light instead of an alarm. Mercy Summit Hospital Trauma ICU, and I dropped my mug and watched coffee slide across tile like it wanted to leave the house before I did, because I only have one child, and there was never a question which one they meant. Room 417 was bright and loud in that hospital way, machines breathing for my boy, gauze around his head, his left arm twisted wrong, and for a second I stood so still, the beeps felt like they were timing my courage. Then I said the smallest promise I could make and keep: I'm here, I'm not leaving, and I meant it down to the bones. You know, the smell metal and bleach and something old pretending to be new, and then this doctor with careful hair tried to sell me. Maybe it was a seizure, maybe we're still determining, and I said no, you're rewriting, and I didn't raise my voice. I just let the silence do the part where he hears his own conscience tap on the glass and ask if his daughter would want the word seizure on a chart where the truth is blunt force trauma. Then came a second unknown number, a voice I recognized for what it was. Steady trained Rowan Hale, special agent. We worked the same air bridge years ago, Kabul corridor. He said my son's name tripped a federal grid campus on lockdown, tactical units on scene, and he was headed to the hospital. And I didn't thank him, didn't beg either. I just said, get the names and the footage and the dispatch log, because once you've been in a room where truth goes to be prettied up, you don't hand it back without teeth marks. Let me be real, people like to ask how I got that calm, like I woke up with a cape under my sweater, but I didn't. Before I was mom with a lunchbox, and 10 minutes late to everything I was Captain Mara Quinn, Judge Advocate U.S. Army. I believed in rules, the way church folks believe in Sundays, filed memos like they were maps out of a minefield, asked the wrong question about a kid who saved American lives and then disappeared into paperwork, lost my access, got the soft threat with the hard edges, stepped down with honor or be dragged out without it, changed my name, changed my town, decided to be small so my son could be seen. That was the plan, and plans are cute until Friday happens. An ICU nurse with tired eyes and a brave whisper told me those officers were laughing when they rolled my boy in, said he was lucky they didn't finish the job, and there's a particular kind of anger that doesn't burn, it crystallizes. I pressed a card into her hand with a number that wasn't mine and told her, use my name if anyone even breathes on you wrong, because fear spreads like smoke and truth needs a doorway, you know what I mean. I called a friend who owes me more favors than he'll admit. Theo March ex-Intel lives out of a backpack and a library card. We camped by the vending machines with a bad hotspot and built the only thing you can build when people lie. A timeline, and the spreadsheet started to sing the song. I've heard too many times complaints dismissed, language cloned across reports like someone hit copy and paste on honesty. Sergeant Blake Riker with prior force issues that somehow kept dissolving Officer Cole Maddox with a personnel file so polished it squeaked kids from Graybrook High and 2 neighboring schools. Same phrases, same hollow echoes, and if you've ever read enough redactions, you can tell an institution by its pen strokes. Hale called from the campus, said they were circling wagons, city lawyer, union rep, a captain who said official business, like it was scripture. Then the weird part, a short convoy rolled up before the feds, green Humvees, black SUVs, patches that said federal protective, not normal, not for this. And he asked me who I made angry, and I didn't answer because the truth is I hadn't had the energy to make enemies in years. Turns out energy arrives when somebody slams your child into concrete and calls it compliance. Theo found a hole in Maddox's training record, 6 months off roster. Not IA, not leave, just vanished into a line item labeled administrative reassignment, and then an invoice with a name I'd never seen in the city budget. Community pattern stabilization vendor, Sentinel Dynamics out of Virginia website full of glossy language about de-escalation and trust, and I almost laughed. Then I remembered my boy's elbow and didn't. There was a grainy training clip, Maddox in a gym with uniforms, voice mild like a patient teacher. You don't control a neighborhood with fear, he said. You control it with patterns. First incident creates outrage, second divides it, third exhausts it. By the fourth, nobody bothers filming, and a chuckle rolled through the room, like that was clever and not evil, and I turned the laptop to the wall because sometimes the only way to stand up is to sit with the proof you weren't crazy. That night I filed with DOJ like an attorney and a mother in the same skin systematic unlawful force against minors under city training protocols. 36 pages, exhibits, timestamps the hospital language they tried to sand down. I hit submit. The house got quiet in that way, where the refrigerator and your heartbeat suddenly sound like the same drum. And 12 hours later, the city declared a curfew and started talking about a domestic threat to law enforcement, which is how power says, please look over there while we sweep over here. Yeah, that happened. We didn't wait for permission to be believed at 2:47 a.m. Theo pushed the body cam raw. 17 minutes. No music, just boots and breath, and my boy whispering I didn't do anything, and Riker saying clean like he'd just completed a chore and not a crime by sunrise. It was everywhere. I watched it barefoot in my kitchen where the tile stays cold no matter how you pray, and I let it hurt. Then the messages poured in, mothers and fathers who never got a video, just a life that split along a line nobody else wanted to see. The counterpunch came right on schedule, old tribunal sketches of me op-eds about loyalty written by men who have never been asked to feed their integrity into a paper shredder, TV voices with smooth hair and smoother lies. So that night I propped my phone on cereal boxes, threw on a hoodie with my kid's name in permanent marker, and hit record. My name is Mara Quinn. I served. I believed I asked the wrong question and learned the rules are holy until they get in the way. They beat my son and tried to erase him. If you're going to dig up my past, at least look me in the eye while you do it. I posted it, and by morning veteran groups surfaced my old testimony and said the quiet part out loud. That woman told the truth when it wasn't fashionable, which is another way of saying now you hear me because it costs you less. The first crack from inside the blue came from retired Sergeant Harold Briggs, 27 years in uniform, voice slow like a door that finally opened. He told me he watched Maddox make a kid scream, his first year, wrote it up, got told. He was lucky the boy didn't get shot, stayed quiet to survive, and he said yes to testifying, even if it kills me, and I believed him because shame can turn into courage when you finally look it in the face long enough. Court didn't feel like a movie. It felt like old wood and new bleach and a stillness that held your breath. Hostage. Riker walked in with his jaw set, like posture could finish what a baton started. Maddox looked like a man who realized the fire was real and the exits were welded shut. The prosecutor rolled the body cam and the room went heavy. The defense offered the usual script protocol. Split second. Fear a teenager in a hoodie with a calculus workbook somehow threatening, and then Briggs put the truth in the air where nobody could smother it. We were trained to see certain bodies as problems, not threats. Problems, and problems don't get rights. Problems get handled. The prosecutor asked if anyone commanded him to falsify reports, and he said no, then added, "What mattered? I didn't need to be told. I knew what a good report looked like. I wrote the good ones, and that's the line that broke the spell." Somewhere between exhibits and recess, Maddox cracked, "We've done it before, we write it right, they back us up." Then he didn't finish, but every eye moved toward me and I didn't look away because there's a time for keeping your head down and there's a time for letting people see exactly how high you can hold it. Verdict came quicker than anyone predicted. Guilty on excessive force, on obstruction, on falsification. People cried. The anchors whispered like they were narrating a funeral for denial. And I walked past microphones and said one thing. This isn't victory. This is responsibility, waking up from a nap. You want the soft part, the clip someone will save for the days they need proof that hope still exists here. It is. I was back in 417 that night. Another cheap coffee, a better blanket, and Jalen's fingers twitched, and I thought maybe I dreamed it. Then his eyes opened slow and found me like the rest of the world was static, and I was the station. His mouth barely moved. Did I do something wrong? And I put my hand on his forehead like when fevers knocked him flat at 5, and I said, "No, baby, you were just yourself." And that sentence felt like a nail through 2 pieces of wood that finally held. Life doesn't button itself up because a jury learned how to read a video. The city said sorry to no one in particular, and we started building something that looked like an answer. You could hold mothers in plain sight, not a nonprofit with lawn signs, more like a map you make together. Gymnasiums filled with names. School board members at Graybrook who rubber-stamped suspensions packed their boxes, policies hit hearings, body cam footage public in 48 hours, independent reviews when minors are involved. No youth arrest without parental notification, simple on paper, revolutionary. If you've been told for years you were asking for the moon. People asked me to run for a seat I never wanted because chairs don't fix culture, people do. But I said yes, not to sit down to break the table. And we won some, lost some, learned. Those are the same days depending on how far back you stand. A mural went up on the east wall of the high school. my kid mid-stride in color. I don't linger there. I touch the brick as I pass because what matters is the adult in the office behind that wall hearing a teenager say, "I didn't do anything," and believing him on the first try. The threats kept trying to audition for power/tires. A letter slid under my door that said, "Stop digging. Accidents happen wrong. Return address right, tone." And I didn't flinch. Not because I'm brave, because I've already lived my worst day. Everything after that is detail still. I'd be lying if I told you my hands never shake unlocking the front door, or that I don't loop the block after late meetings. Courage is getting groceries with fear riding shotgun and still making dinner on time. A year later, I sat under 2 bright lights at a town hall and some polished host asked what made you stay in the fire after your son woke up. And I took a long breath to let my heart walk back from the ledge. Because waking up isn't a happy ending. It's the beginning we should have had. I don't want a statue, I want a city that doesn't require mothers to become warriors so their kids can make it home. I'm not interested in being your symbol, I'm your mirror, and whatever you think you see in me, the fight, the grief, the stubborn hope, it's already in your neighborhood. Stop waiting for a video to give you permission to believe what you know. Here's the twist, some folks don't love to hear, and maybe this is where the comments go wild. You don't fix a habit this deep with 1 verdict or 5 training contracts get signed every fiscal year with words like stabilization, doing the job, obedience used to do, budgets, hide overtime and call it safety. We are still teaching some officers how to keep a scene under control instead of keeping a human being alive. And, yeah, somewhere tonight a mom is sitting next to a machine that is breathing for her child, while a city council debates whether the kid's hands were up high enough to qualify for mercy. Dramatic, sure, but Tuesday looks dramatic when you stop lying about it. We did what scared people say won't work. We told the truth in rooms that prefer tidy lies, and word by word the room changed, you could feel it. Not a tidal wave, more like a door that was painted shut for years, and then somebody found the edge and started prying, you know what I mean. My boy is rehabbing now, music staff paper on his lap, legs learning rhythm again. He doesn't talk much about that day. Doesn't have to. His presence is testimony. And when people ask if I forgave the men who did it, I say, forgiveness is a house. I'm still building. 1 plank is called accountability, and another is called stop pretending this was an accident. Hale checks in. Theo still lives out of a backpack and a library card. Briggs sends me postcards with 3 words that make me laugh every time still telling it. And the mural at Graybrook fades a little in the sun, which is a good thing. It means the story is passing into muscle memory instead of staying trapped in fresh paint. So what do you do with this? What do I want from you besides the views and the polite nods? Here's the handoff. Finish this sentence in the comments so I can read it to my son when he walks across our kitchen without help. Justice is Mang. Tell me your city, and the moment it disappointed you or surprised you or both push back if you need to argue about power, about training, about what safety means when it doesn't feel safe to everyone. If you've sat in a room where honesty got edited into paperwork until it stopped looking like pain. Tell us if you've worn a badge and chose to be human first. Tell us too, yeah, that happened and we're still here. And if stories like Jalen's shouldn't need a video to count, hit subscribe, turn on all notifications, share this with 1 person who still thinks silence is neutral because we're not finished, not close, but we're louder than yesterday and tomorrow. Tomorrow we get to choose again.